My name is Ashley, and this is Let's Talk Dispatch.
I do. You're gonna do it. Do it really well.
And I believe the world needs more dispatchers.
Around in the mud, blood, and beer.
Years that I'm not working 4th of July. 4th of July.
Say community policing, right? What about community dispatch?
So on this show, with the help of my guests, we will educate, empower, and support the heroes behind the headset.
Right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode here of Let's Talk Dispatch with me, Ashley, the Raspy Dispatcher. Hope everyone's doing well going into whatever day of the week it is for you currently. I actually worked today. Excuse me. I worked some overtime the last 2 days, and it was daytime, overtime, and I just, I'm switching to, of course, right when I start hitting record, my voice just goes crazy. I'm switching to day shift for 4 months because we sign up every 4 months. And yeah, I'm already regretting it. And that's only because I worked at overtime in the day shift hours this week. And day shifters out there, man, I do not know how you do it, how you get up at these hours that no one, I repeat, no one should be awake for, drive to work, answer these calls during the day. Daytime calls are so different than nighttime calls. So for anyone who is doing a shift change that they don't like or prefer, or got stuck on a shift they would rather switch, I'm here for you. I'm thinking about you, and I wish you well. And I get it. I'm about to go through that process literally in 2 weeks. So for everyone who's trying to survive these shifts, just hang on in there. All right, before we get to today's guests, let's hear a word from our sponsors. Today's episode of Let's Talk Dispatch is proudly sponsored by Prepared. Their mission is to be public safety's most assistive technology. Revolutionizing how we handle emergencies, Prepared is dedicated to saving more lives and making our communities safer. Learn more about how Prepared is transforming emergency response at prepared911.com. Our next sponsor is Zybex Media. Since 2020, Zybex has been creating impactful recruitment films for their customers. Zybex Media offers their expertise, providing a full range of media solutions designed to attract and retain talent for all PSAPs. Visit zybex.com/media to learn more. These partnerships help us continue to spread the message that the world needs more dispatchers. Interested in partnering with us? Head to theraspydispatcher.com. So for today's guests, they bring over 26 years of invaluable experience in public safety and emergency management. They've been a dispatcher, a trainer, a manager, all before they dived in to the private sector. My guest today, Wendy. Hi, Wendy.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on to the show. I always love hearing from folks who have been doing this. You know what I mean?
A minute. Yeah, it's been a minute at least.
No, and how did you get into public safety? How did you find yourself here?
Oh my gosh, you talking about shift work? Yeah. I just say I completely sympathize with you. I hated day shift to the core of my being. And when I went into an admin position, I was like, can it not be 7 a.m.? Can it not be like quite so early?
Just a little later.
Yeah, I'm with you. I feel you. I feel your pain. I got into public safety in kind of a roundabout way. I actually moved up to the Portland area to go to law school. I grew up in Nevada, but Nevada didn't have a law school at the time. Remember, this is 26 plus years ago. So, it was a while ago. So they didn't have a law school, and we moved up to Portland so that I could go to law school. And my now ex-husband was looking to get into law enforcement, while I was in law school and doing all the law school stuff. And so he ended up getting a job as a sheriff's deputy in a neighboring county next to Portland. And it was actually one of his really good friends, as I was sitting there talking in the stands of watching them play football or whatever it was that they were doing. And one of his friends is like, you'd be a really good dispatcher, kind of thing. And I never, I didn't give it a second thought at the time, but after I graduated from law school and I was really looking for full-time work and benefits and, being able to pay my law student loans back and all that. Yeah. It was literally, now this ages me, I know, but there was an ad in the paper, in the newspaper, for dispatchers for the city of Portland. And that comment came back to me of, you'd be a good dispatcher. And I was like, maybe I should figure this out. And nobody thought I would stay because I was studying to take the bar exam and all that stuff during the hiring process. And then I actually got the results while I was in academy, and we couldn't take any time off. And so what happens is they frequently will short people a few points of passing, and then you go down and you challenge it, and you have to find the points and tell them where they should have given you the points in your score. So that's what happened. That's what happened to me. It was 3 points off, but I couldn't take any time off to go down to Salem, because you had to drive to Salem and review everything and then challenge the points to get a passing score to pass the bar. And I was like, well, I either have to quit this job that I just started, 2 months ago. I was still in training, I was like, I either have to quit this job that's like a bird in the hand, or go and try and challenge it. And I was like, well, I can do it someday, or I can retake it someday, kind of thing. And I chose to stay in the job. And then 16 years later, I was still there.
And she's still considering challenging those points. So
right. I think it's a little late, but you never know. So yeah, life takes you in crazy directions. And it was always a thought, it was there, in the back of my mind again, of I could go retake it, or, I could do it if that's the path I chose. But I ended up, and I think a lot of people who end up in public safety, and specifically in dispatching, it's kind of once it gets under your skin, it's hard to walk away from.
Yeah. I mean, it's such an interesting background to have. I mean, you didn't practice, obviously, but just that knowledge base, where you're actually telling people this is civil, I got some knowledge behind this. Do you think that what you learned in your studies has influenced the way you think about law enforcement, the way you think about how we handle these things kind of on the front end of people's experience, right? By the time you get a lawyer, the thing happened.
Right. It's a little late.
We're already talking to the dispatcher, but did that influence your thinking about the way we do things? Or
I think so, because I think in several ways. One is, one of the main things when you're in law school is they're teaching you to think of things from multiple points of view. And so even though you may have your own inclination about what the truth is, or about how, a particular event happened, frequently when you're in law school, you are assigned to argue the other side. And so you have to be able to kind of think about things on both sides and balance. So I think in a lot of ways that taught me to be very objective and not automatically put my own spin on things. So I think that was really helpful, especially with, a lot of things that could be frustrating, or push your buttons, or, your trigger points and things and calls that happen, and that ability to kind of stay neutral and just listen to the whole story before you kind of evaluate. I think that was super helpful. The other thing that was helpful was that when I decided to start teaching or coaching and all that, I actually got certified to teach some of the state classes for law, for public safety. So that actually gave me an outlet of something else that I could do. And so I taught a lot of the law classes for several years.
Very cool. Yeah.
For academies and stuff. So that helped me with that. And that was certainly a lot of fun. I enjoyed teaching. Law classes, I'm not gonna lie, are pretty boring, but they're boring. But but I had a lot of fun teaching classes, and that really got me into like the coaching and teaching world, and kind of in my trajectory of my career, because I don't think I necessarily would have done it as much as I did or as early on if I hadn't had that background.
Yeah. Oh, it's very cool. And I mean, going into like when you were just getting started, obviously, you know, you had a friend who was like, yeah, you'd be a great dispatcher. And you kind of have this law, you're into that stuff. And then you get into dispatching. What was that like? Was it like a complete and total like shift? You're like, what the heck was I doing? Or, you know, obviously you've stayed for a long time, but what was that first initial like entry into this line of work like?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I had no idea what I was getting into. The very first sit along I did was on my first day in class. So I literally had really no real clue as to what was going to happen. So it was definitely a culture shock. But I'm back in education mode, which was my jam at the time. You know, like I knew how to study. I knew how to memorize things, you know, things that you got to remember, things were far less computerized back then. So we had Thomas Brothers maps, and we had geography drills, and we memorized 100 blocks, and we had to write out police districts on a blank map. And, you know, but that was all kind of stuff that I was like, oh, I can do this, because I'm in, you know, I was coming fresh off a learning mode. And I thought, oh, I've survived law school. What could be harder? Let me tell you, dispatch training is harder. Let me tell you, because by the time I was
such an interesting concept. Like there is no training like dispatch. It's just it's wild.
By the time I was like getting close to being certified, especially in police dispatch, I was like, my brain is full. I couldn't, like, I felt like things were just popping out. Like I couldn't remember stuff I was supposed to remember. And I was just like, what is going on? I survived law school. How is this harder? But let me tell you, and it's a muscle and the methodology of training and being connected to somebody, especially those daily evaluations, and knowing somebody is watching you every single minute. That's just not a normal, you know, training and teaching experience. So it was definitely a culture shock.
It's really not. And it's funny because I'm like a little behind, like replying to people's comments. And I actually have it on my to-do list today to like reply. And one of the folks were like, can you do one for the trainees? And like trainees, the world you live in for that 6, 8, 12 month, however long your training process is, it is so unique to dispatch. Like I've had quite a few jobs, I would say, and I am someone who receives feedback well. And the amount of feedback you get in dispatch training is like unhealthy. It's like it does not make anyone feel good, because there's always something you could do better. Even
and
now,
you're not prepared for it, because like I said, in what world have you gotten that much feedback?
Minutes, like every minute. Well, I mean, like even if Wendy picked up the mic and started listening in on me as a full-fledged grown dispatcher now, we could still provide feedback. Like it's just one of those jobs, like when someone's listening to you, you can always do something better, or you can always ask a question differently. Like it just is that. And that's hard for trainees sometimes to get in that, you know?
Yep, exactly. That pause was a little long, or you could have said that faster, or you typoed this, or that's not the right abbreviation, or I mean, there's so many things.
Those abbreviations,
right?
Especially as a lateral, let me tell you. Like, well, why don't you guys use that abbreviation? That's the right abbreviation.
Well, I got to tell you, so again, pre-cell phone, you know, like there were brick cell phones, but not a lot of people had cell phones when I started. And so we had our own abbreviations. And then when texting really became a thing, those abbreviations messed up our abbreviations that we had been using, because now all of a sudden they meant something different. So like LOL meant little old lady to us back in the day, you know, like, you know?
That's hilarious.
So there were so many abbreviations that we used. All of a sudden we're like, well, what do you mean we can't use that abbreviation anymore? Well, that means something different now. You gotta yeah. So yeah, abbreviations. Oof. Yeah, that's the list, man. Yeah.
Little old lady. I think LOL is forever ruined for me now. I think that you have broke that ceiling for me, and that is forever going to be little old lady now.
I have never typed LOL after anything. I put ha 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 because I can't type LOL without thinking of that.
That is hilarious. I feel like I should put a poll out there for like dispatchers who have been doing this. Like, what was LOL for you pre-texting? Like, but technology is so extraordinary, right? Like in general, but just as far as it's come in 911, and yet we're still a little behind infrastructure wise and whatnot. But what do you like looking at 911 in tech and a full picture? Like you said, you guys use Thomas Brothers maps. Like there are dispatchers who have no idea what the heck you're talking about, like, and like I say all the time, I don't know if I could have done this job. I am someone who loves tech and likes the tech that we have. It was a tough job. It's a tough job now. It certainly is a tough job without our technology. What has it been like watching tech come into this field?
Yeah, it's been amazing because I mean, we didn't even have GPS for the officers or for the units, right? So we just had to know what their area was and where they should be and who should go. And I remember having a pursuit one time, and the dispatcher next to me, I'm like, turn the page, because I was like, I'm typing too fast. I'm like, I can't turn the page and type and keep track of where he's going, and and the whole bit. So yeah, watching that. And then we changed back in 2011. We did a huge CAD switch in Portland, and that was the first Windows-based CAD. It had better mapping. We had a CAD map before, but it was, because GPS had started before then, but it was pretty basic. So then to kind of upgrade into a Windows-based environment, you're using much more of the mouse. You can tab through and all these different things. It's both more complicated and easier, so the people who were quick with the way that you did it before, and everything was very command line based. Everything you typed a command to pretty much do everything. And then all of a sudden, like, you can click on other buttons, or you can click a shortcut, or you can click this tab, or, and enter information in different fields. That was a rough change for the people who've been doing it a long time in a different way to switch to a Windows environment. But the new people coming in, it was just like water, and it was great, and they loved it. So I watched that take place, but watching Annie Alley improve, watching actual locations get better, and not, and be like, yeah, it's a phase 1 cell phone call, so we still really have no clue where this person is, So all of those things, I mean, that's amazing to me that we're finally getting to a place. Like you said, 911 is still a little behind the times in a lot of those things, and especially certain agencies that haven't kept up with some of the technology that's out there. And being able to find people faster has just been amazing. I mean, that's a game changer. You're not trying to call them back and be like, what corner are you on? Describe what's around you, because they can't find you. And we're still trying to see where you are. And it's like, oh, you're in Northeast, not Southeast. Great. Okay. We got to send you somebody else, like that whole thing. Whereas all this technology with the better locations is just amazing. Knowing where the units are is, obviously a game changer for tracking the calls and all of that as well. So it's been really fascinating to watch, and I'm super excited actually about a lot of the newer technology that's coming, and how I know people hate or love the AI type of discussion, but thinking about the ways that can assist with basic information, or that does like the automatic call transcription. So you're like, what did that guy just say? But hey, it's printed right there in front of me what he just said.
If I had $1 for every time, we could retire. You know what I mean? Like, this is group dispatching. What did he say? You speak him, I don't speak him. What did he say?
Let me play the recorder back real quick. Let me see what you said. So So things like that, I mean, it's just amazing. And now, especially in the role that I'm in now, seeing some of the technology before it's really going out, to the workforce and into the people, the hands that are using them, the radios that they're creating now are basically like smartphones and a radio, and the stuff that it can do is just amazing. And I'm like, I never would have envisioned that, 26 years ago, ever.
Yeah.
As being a technology that's available. So to me, it's been super fascinating. It's always exciting to be able to be like, what's the new thing that we can integrate? And oh, look, we can do this now. Let's try it, So I've always been a believer in try and update and do the new stuff, but it's always hard because people don't like change and everything costs money.
That part.
Both of those things are challenges. Both of those things are challenges in every dispatch center, right? So but yeah, technology is just amazing. And I can't even envision what it's going to look like in 10 years from now.
Right.
I have no idea.
I'm waiting for them to get like the Iron Man setup, where you're like dispatching here with the minute we can do that, I can quit, the minute we can do all that, I'm out of here,
Yeah.
But technology really is wonderful. And you're right. A lot of people, especially AI is huge right now. And there is a level of worry that if we get too techie, that they're going to take away from the people. And I'm just like, the people ain't going nowhere. The job is too hard. It's
it's very nuanced and people don't realize that. Yeah.
It's no matter how good the tech is, it's assistive. It's assistive AI. It's assistive technology. It's just not going to be something that can be replaced. It's just, they're not that good,
Right. Well, because like you said, it has to be programmed. It has to anticipate so many different possibilities. And I know that there's a lot starting out like with non-emergency type of calls, which I get, like if it can easily get somebody to fill out a noise complaint or a stolen, bicycle report or any, some of these things like the cold calls, and those can be taken off the street and done through like an AI that gives them a reporting platform, that's great. That helps with staffing, that helps with a lot of things. But yeah, the understanding the nuances of what people say, how they say it, and what information is necessary is a lot more complex than I think the algorithms that we have right now. But that's not to say that they won't get better and they won't just continue to improve, But I agree. I think there's always going to need a people intervention factor at some point somewhere for all of it, because people move, people lie, people do all kinds of things. So.
People lie? Not on these recorded lines, never. Well, you have extensive experience and history in dispatch, and considering that, what is kind of the key skills or essentials that you think new dispatchers need to develop either early in their career or as quickly as possible to be successful and to really feel like they're able to perform well in this career?
I think from watching people from when I was younger in my career and seeing people that had already been in the career for a long time, you could see the people who had become kind of the crusty, the cranky, the leave me alone, I don't want to know your name kind of people. And then you see people who are super friendly and nice and seem really happy. And I always wondered that. I'm like, how does the same environment, obviously some of it is personality, but what is it about them that like leans this person into being like so crusty and negative and this person still seeming relatively normal and happy, right? So I think that it's odd because I've gotten asked this question a lot. I've interviewed like literally hundreds of people in my career in different capacities. And I think that the keys are resiliency and flexibility. And the reason that I say that is because people think that, everybody that comes into 911 are type A personalities or control freaks or everything. Sometimes that's true, but I've also worked with a lot of people who are not type A personalities, and so I don't think that that's really a requirement to be kind of that aggressive go-getter per se, but it's really hard for that type of personality to be super flexible. And I think that some of those people, especially when you get disappointed, when things happen in the workplace that are outside of your control, some of the worst arguments in the comm center were over how hot or cold it was, who ate my lunch, what lunch I'm going to take. You know what I mean? These were not the life and death things that were causing arguments in the center. It was like the things that were outside of their control that were smaller things that kind of caused like the bigger angst and caused people to be frustrated and angry. And the more that you're in that space, the quicker it leads to like a burnout, type of situation. So the flexibility thing and understanding that you don't control everything and that's okay is hard. I'm not great at it. And even after, 26 years, because I like my things. I like them the way I like them. And, that's how people are. But I've had to learn flexibility and kind of, as my friend says, learn to be frozen and just let it go. Just let it go. And why be angry about it? And that's not always easy. And that's kind of leads into that resilience factor. Gosh, I don't know. It was a long time ago. It's probably 15 years ago when at one of the conferences in Oregon, there's a guy who had written a book on resilience, and he came and he was talking about that, like what makes some people through adversity become more resilient and more positive versus becoming disgruntled and victim and feel victimized and, be angry the rest of their lives. And it's perception. It's how you take in the information and then what you do with that. Because we all get disappointed. We all get frustrated. We all have that caller who we want to like wrangle their neck. We all have that coworker who are like, can I just not sit by this person today? You know what I mean? Like we all have that happen. So how do you bounce back from that and not let a 5-minute or a 2-minute or a 30-second interaction ruin your entire day? Because this too shall pass. And that's a hard thing, because especially when you're in training and like you're saying, everybody's looking at me. My goal is to try and be perfect. That's a really, really hard goal to meet, and you let that one mistake that happened 30 minutes into your shift ruin your entire day.
Yeah. Snowball effect too.
Yeah. So that goes back to that resiliency and flexibility. And it's a mindset thing that we have to, train ourselves to lean into. And it's not always easy. But to be able to find that place where we're like, okay, I can let that one thing go. Yep, that sucked. I need to do it better. This is a lesson I learned from that. Okay, let's remember that for the next time and move on versus holding on to the negativity of that moment throughout the entire day or the entire week, And so how people build that, that's individual. There's not like a magic fix for that. People have to be able to really assess themselves and have some actual inner reflection on like, why am I so upset about this right now? Or did I overreact? Did I underreact? And kind of have that ability to reflect. But I think that success really boils down to those things as far as maintaining a long-term career where you're not that bitter and just disenfranchised and kind of disengaged employee. Are the people that let it roll off their back a little bit, don't take everything quite so personally to heart, or do it for a short amount of time and move on and let it go. So, I mean, that's what I try and tell people, which I know that they want something that's more simple, that's easier to enact.
Yeah.
But I really think from my observations, it kind of boils down to those two things.
Yeah. And I completely agree. Like this idea, the job in itself requires flexibility, like being able to hold over and, switch and adapt and, but those sometimes I think the skills that we put into the actual job, like answering 911, like the pivot that we get used to doing with hard callers or weird calls and stuff, we forget to let that translate into our own personal lives, like our own, like I have this ability. I do it every day at work, like my actual job. We pivot all day long and we deal with what comes at us, but sometimes we forget that we have that skill and we need to implement it here.
Yeah. And you're right. And we don't always use it all up at work because we have to take that home with us also. Right. So it's that balance, I think. I know that, one of the things that's talked about a lot is burnout. And that is part of what does it, is like, if you bring work home, or if you use up all your skills at work and don't have any left for home, or vice versa, you have a lot of stuff going on at home and you use up all your skills at home and don't have any left for work, that always creates that tension and leaves people to, to feel overworked and have the less resilience and less ability to deal with everything. Because it's definitely a balance. It's definitely, and they're not all going to be equal at all times, but you got to find the balance between the two.
Speaking of balance and burnout, it is significant in dispatch centers across the states, especially for new dispatchers. It is something that, and there's a lot of reasons for that. You're in a center that's short staffed. Once you go 10-8, once you're available to answer calls, all of a sudden you're in the throw of filling these overtime hours. What strategies or support systems, in your experience, have you found effective in helping folks avoid this, whether they be new dispatchers or folks who've been doing this for a while?
Yeah, I certainly know that I experienced levels of burnout at different times. And I remember saying to my supervisor once, well, I just know if I want to come in and just do my job and go sit in the corner and not participate in anything else, I can just do that. And he just looked at me, he's like, really? You think you can do that? Nice. He's like, I don't think that's a very good self-assessment, Wendy. And I was like, well, I'll try, I was mad. So, but what I realized is, again, when I've gone through phases of burnout, I haven't done the same thing each time to kind of resolve it and bounce back. So at one point in time, I think I really felt like, am I making a difference? I don't have any closure. I don't know what happened with any of these things. And that was kind of, I felt like, what was dragging me down. So I went out and volunteered and became a CASA volunteer. Which is a court appointed special advocate who works on child abuse and neglect cases. And so you write reports for the court, you meet the families, and you basically write reports for what you think is in the best interest of the kids in these cases. And I did that for 4 years. And then I became a supervisor and my schedule completely changed, and that I couldn't really work around it as much anymore. And so I did it for about 4 years. And then another time when I kind of went through the burnout, I realized I was working way too much overtime voluntarily. And like you're talking about, hey, I picked up a couple extra shifts, and you get into that mode of like, oh, I want to go on this vacation. If I work this many shifts, then I can just pay for that vacation. But you don't realize the toll that it's taking on you in the meantime. So I just made a deal with myself. I'm like, okay, for the next 6 months, I'll work my mandatory overtime, but I'm not going to work any voluntary overtime for 6 months. And just to be like, okay, what does that do to your time, and what else can you do with your time that you're not, going in and working, that is more positive and is healthier for you, and, gets you out of that rut. So I think, again, it comes kind of just to self-assessment. But I think in the beginning, it's really important to have the conversation with your friends and family about your time, and that your time is going to be different, and that you might not be able to make every, holiday, and you might not be able to make every birthday party. And that, maybe you guys always went out on like a Friday night, and now you work Friday nights, and be like, is there another day that we can do this? Or, I'll just have to bow out for a bit. And being realistic about what the challenges are, and being able to kind of clear your plate a little bit, especially during that training period where it is going to be hard. You're not sure what's going to be thrown at you. And you have to have that support, you have to kind of get that buy-in from your friends and family. I also learned very quickly that I didn't really talk to my family about the work calls, because when I started to, I spent so much time trying to explain what I was talking about and like who this person was, or what that thing was. What does that mean? What do you mean dispatch? Versus I had worked in 911 for, I think, 12 years. My dad said to me, yeah, but who sends the officers where they need to go, and who helps them when they're out there? And I'm like, me? No, I'm answer the phone, but like, when the units go out there, like, who talks to them? And I'm like, me? What is it you think I do? I realized that I had not talked enough about what I did for them to have a clear understanding. So I think that like your family needs to have a clear understanding about
Mhm.
what you're doing and the challenges, but then also get that support of like, hey, especially while I'm in training, like
Mm.
I might not need you to solve my problems. I might need you to just be like, yep, it's hard. Sorry you had a hard day, you know, and just be there for me and not want me to relive the whole thing and explain the whole thing all over again. So I think it's hard because there's a lot more resources now than when I started. So, I mean, if having a counselor or a life coach or something like that works for you, continue to do it. Like, don't stop it, or maybe start it if you haven't done it before. So you have some kind of objective, you know, wall to bounce the ball off of, kind of thing. But know who you can talk about what with, because you don't want to traumatize your family. You don't want to, you know, there's certain people you can talk about certain things to. So you've got to kind of figure those things out. But yeah, I think you need to set the expectations for yourself of like, okay, my time is going to look totally different now for a little while till I figure this out. And just like lean into that and not try and maintain the same exact schedule and life that you had before you started training and working all these crazy shifts.
It's true. And I true story, I was when I was in my academy, I was seeing someone and they wanted to come over and I was like, look, I'm studying. Like I've never had this. I'm studying. You can come hang out, but like I'm studying. You need like you bring your own book. Like I don't like you're welcome to hang out on this couch, but
yeah,
I am studying. And I remember we got into an argument that day because I was studying and not paying enough attention. And I was like, I don't know where the confusion is here.
Yeah, like, no, seriously.
But
yeah, and it is hard because, again, like you're saying, it's not kind of a normal training type of environment. It's not a normal job that people can automatically relate to. There's so much jargon. There's so much stuff, you know, that it's hard. And you spend so much time teaching all of that stuff to somebody just so they can understand what you're talking about. It becomes exhausting. So yeah, it's definitely a challenge. But yeah, we had somebody that happened to, and her boyfriend like wasn't letting her study, and she was staying up late, and then she wasn't gonna have sleep, and she was literally falling asleep in class. And we pulled her aside and we're like, what's going on? You can't fall asleep, you know, in class. And she's just like, I know, but this and that. And she's like, I just can't get him to understand that, like, I have to go to sleep and I have to study and I have to do this stuff. And she failed a couple of tests and didn't make it that time around. But she reapplied later on, and her situation had changed. She wasn't.
Hey, look, he got me this job.
Yeah, her situation had changed, and she came back, and she succeeded. You know, she made it through because, but she recognized, like, hey, no, that is something I wanted to do, and this is what caused me to kind of fail the first time. I'm going to make a change and come back and be successful, and she did. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, and I think it's on us, right, to set those boundaries. Like for my story, like this person knew I needed to study. Right. They did not respect my boundaries and it caused an issue. We can't expect our family to understand if we don't tell them about it.
Right.
You know, like, why don't you understand I have to study? And they're like, what do you mean? I didn't even know you took tests. I you got the job already. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
So we have to take a little responsibility and communicating clearly, you know, what to expect during this really interesting time in your career that is academy and training. It's just a unique beast that you need your support system to get it, or at least get it enough that they want to support you through it in the best way they can.
Exactly.
So yeah, no, that I'm burnt out just thinking about it.
I know.
But I mean, you've moved on to the private sector, and you've kind of grown through dispatch, I would say, you know, from pre-law to private sector, and you know, kind of looking back at your career, and is there anything you wish you would have known sooner, whether it be like a supervisor aspect or even just like a frontline aspect that you would tell tell yourself to consider, to think about, to be aware of as you move through your career?
Yeah, I think the like I said, the concept of perfection, and I'm a little bit of a perfectionist by nature, but
Mm.
and I'm a rule follower. And
Mm.
so when other people don't follow rules, then I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna be wrong.
Start
Like that caused me stress. So
to-
to learn a little bit earlier, like to not let those things bother you and not let those
Mm.
things, like affect you. Certainly could have helped to know that it's okay to be told no. That doesn't, it's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get selected the next time, or that that there's anything wrong with you, or with you as a person. And I think that for somebody to just have told me, like, while I was in training, like, no, this isn't easy. Like, nobody actually thinks this is easy. And so the fact that you think it is hard is okay, because guess what? It's hard,
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I think that kind of started because the whole concept of, critical incident stress management and peer support,
Mhm.
when it was really up and coming, was probably just a few years after I got hired. And so then once we started talking about doing peer support and talking to people and some of the things with doing debriefings and things like that became more common. I think that really helped, because when I first started, it was take a call and then take the next call,
Mhm.
and it didn't matter what the call was. Take the next call. There's another call holding, take it. So
Mhm.
you didn't necessarily feel comfortable with taking the breaks in between. I remember taking a call once, and I literally got off the call and I turned around and looked at everybody like, how can you all just be sitting here acting normal? Because that was like the most horrendous call. And then I realized, like, everybody else is doing their thing and they have no idea what call I just took. And I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
there's a call holding. I guess I'll take the next call. And so
Mhm.
I think that people are better at looking out for each other and understanding that, like, peer support is really needed in the workplace. Um,
Mhm.
and that it's good to reach out to others. I think we are a little bit more caring workplace than maybe, back in the day when,
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie, there was a coach that, like, would flick their trainee with a wrapping paper roll on the head. Like, some of the stuff back in the day.
Yeah.
And so I think that, that as that shifts, I think that becomes easier. But yeah, I just wish that, like, early on, I'd had a little bit better sense of, it's okay to not know everything as long as you know where to find it.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
and it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask others. Nobody expects you to know every single bit of information that has been jammed into your head during this training period and
Mhm.
retain all of it,
Mhm. That part,
So,
yeah.
yeah. So, like, yeah, you learned it once, or, yeah, that was in that book that we talked about, or we had that one class, but that it's okay to ask and, like, use your resources and use your coworkers to help. You don't have to do it all by yourself.
It's true. I mean, it is one of those things, like, it really takes a village. I lean on my people, my coworkers, my shift mates, like, daily for so many things. Just because, you never know, like, what you're gonna need
Yeah.
assistance with, what you remember, what they remember, what's the thing code we type here in this random NCIC mass that I never
Yeah.
use, like, it's just we can't know everything in here. I mean, it's just not possible. And I do think in a role where we're expected to be perfect, because the consequence can essentially be really
Mhm.
high
Mhm.
um, when an error does happen. But I think we need to be honest. We're people humans doing a human job,
Right.
and we will make mistakes. And we should always lean on policy and follow those things, all that stuff, of course. But
Yeah.
mistakes happen, and there are the simple little mistakes that we might get a lecture about or a talking to and things like that. But it's gonna happen. If I'm taking thousands of calls a year, I'm gonna forget to attach this or run that, or it's just it's the statistically, and as someone who cheated through every math class they've ever taken, I would say the odds are high. So
well, but that's a good point too, like you were saying. And so how do you that acceptance of feedback, and how do you take that? Because it's true, you go in and sure, you've probably taken 100 calls that were great or better, and then this one call you're getting reviewed. So you can go into it with the mindset of like, okay, I messed that up, I missed that call, or I missed that question, okay, that was one out of 100. Or you can go out and be like, why did they just pick on the one call that I did? Because let me tell you, I've been both those people. I have supervised both of those employees.
Well, last week I had that lady yelling at me. Right. I didn't say nothing to her.
Right, exactly. So, so that goes back to that mindset of like, how are you going to take it all in and continue to move on? Because we've all had it. We've all had it where we're just like, really, that's the call you're going to ask me about, but then just be like, okay, thanks. Sure. Yeah. Yep. I heard you. Thank you. Appreciate your feedback, and just move on.
And to play the other side of it, supervisors, don't only talk to your people about the one call.
Yeah, it's hard,
did not do well on.
Yeah.
Have other conversations as well. Often, consistently.
And I think that's hard too, because, having been a supervisor, having been, like all the roles, it is hard because the supervisors are given so much other stuff to do. And then they're right in the middle, they're the sandwich in the middle of the top and the frontline worker. And, the messages that they have to provide, and then the amount of work they have to do, or how many people they have to talk to, it's super easy to get in that, okay, I just got to get this done and in and out, and forget like, I got to spend a minute and like talk to people, and not just talk about the negative stuff, and just be like, hey, how's it going? And hey, I heard you on that call the other day. Good job. We got this one to review, but I know, I hear you every day out there, and you sound good, but we still have this call to review. There's a way to approach it that that doesn't make it feel like it's just a constant little smack.
Yeah. And I mean, hey, shout out to the folks, the managers, the supervisors, whatever your title is in your center, that kind of requires that extra layer of supervision. I mean, it's a tough job. I know, like I told my supervisor, when my supervisor's texting me on a day off and it's 6 a.m., it's not to tell me that I'm amazing. It's to ask me, beg me, maybe offer, a firstborn child to get me to come to work, or, to mandate me in, like all the non-fun things. And like, if you're always the bearer of bad news, that's not a fun role to be in.
It's hard. And that's why supervisors get burnout too, because they're, because that's what they're dealing with on a daily basis. And that negativity, dealing with negative all day long really, weighs on them as well. So,
so I mean, it's got to be a partnership. It's got to be, you meet me here, I meet you there. We're both responsible for creating these centers that we want people to want to work in.
Right. We all need people. I mean, there are some that are fully staffed, but the majority of people I talk to, they're still struggling to keep people long term, because people are just like, I can work from home. This isn't worth it,
Yeah. I mean, someone just I just replied right before I jumped on here to a TikTok comment, and they said they're staffed 60 out of 140. And I'm like, again, not great at math over here, but I feel like that's
not enough.
That's not enough.
That's rough. Yeah, that's rough.
It is. It is so rough. And I mean, it's one of the struggles, with essentially we're promoting this role that has issues, right? Like we're working on it. We're trying to fix these things. And these are realities, if you're getting into this line of work or considering this line of work, that you need to consider. And agencies really should be doing some reflection on what can they change, what can they do differently. And obviously, we talked a little earlier, money and things like that is sometimes a struggle, but what are the things we can take hold of to make our centers better? And even when we have shorting and staffing and situations that breed burnout, why is this a place where I want to walk through that with my people?
Right. And it is, and a lot of times it boils down to relationships. I mean, I've certainly just met the best people. You know what I mean? Like so I have relationships. I just came back from a trip where everybody on the trip except for one person's spouse, the other 5 of us all used to work together in the same 911 center. Only one of us still works at that 911 center, but we're all still, good friends and travel together like at least once a year, if not multiple times a year. And those are the types of relationships that, they're just, like you said, they fill your core, they fill your soul, they're the ones that help support and keep you, keep you moving, even though we've all diverged into different, different areas, different locations and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I'm just some of the smartest and most creative people that I've met working in this profession. And, and some of them stay a really long time and some of them just kind of come in and go, I'm out, and, and I get it. And you got to do what you got to do to make yourself, happy. I said, always choose happiness. Don't choose money. Don't stay in a job for money. It's not, it's never worth it in the end for your health and your happiness. But yeah, I mean, it's possible because I see it every day. I see people who are doing really well and are very positive, and sometimes opportunities like mine drop in your lap and you just go, oh, wait, this is something I can do. Like I could do this, and that's a change and that's a new challenge and that's a great thing too. So everybody's got to make those, those choices for themselves in this career for sure.
Yeah. Well, as we bring it all to a close here, the last question I ask everyone who joined me is, what advice would you give someone who is considering a career as a 911 dispatcher?
Yeah, I think, we've covered a lot of it. I think one, no, it isn't easy. Just know that going into it, it's not going to be easy. You're not a secretary. You're not a telephone operator. You're not just answering a phone and type in. Like there's so much more that goes into it. Know that coming into it, know that especially initially, it might consume a lot of your time, your brain power, and your energy. And just kind of be prepared for how you're gonna deal with that. Know that sometimes that's in the short term in training until you get your groove and and all of that. And like I said, and set expectations for yourself and your family and friends for what's really realistic of your time and your space, and the ability. Understand what resources you have for discussion, for feedback, for whatever, even if it's just venting. Who's the person that you can vent to and they're just gonna let you vent versus try and address every single issue that you came up with a solution that you don't want to hear, right? Because sometimes you don't want to hear the solutions, sometimes you just need to vent. So like kind of know, build that little support system for yourself of who are those people that you can vent to, who are the people that you need to like brainstorm and problem solve with, who can give you good advice for when you're feeling a certain way on a certain day, that kind of stuff. So I mean that's a lot, but I think it all boils down to like how you prepare yourself. Like it's a rewarding career, it's a difficult career. It's been an amazing career that was not the one I anticipated. It wasn't the one that I intended to go into. But when I had an opportunity to leave and do something else, I did do something else for a hot minute with transportation. But when I left that position, this is what drew me back. Like it's, because it is more rewarding than any other job I've ever had. So, so know that sometimes the negatives outweigh the positives on a particular day, but in the scheme of things, like I can look back now and say over the last 26 years, I don't know what else I would have done. This was, an amazing surprise, an unanticipated career, but it's been a great one with a lot of really, really great friends and contacts all over the country. So I wouldn't change it.
Oh my gosh. So wonderful, Wendy. Thank you so much for coming on to the show and sharing your experience and your wisdom. And I feel like you should go get your degree exam bar.
Go past the bar. Go take a new bar exam somewhere. Just do it.
There might be a free weekend you have where you just go do it. And then you're like, oh, maybe I can do that too.
Yeah, you're like, it's never too late. No.
Right, it's never too late. I feel like you did the hard part already. So maybe, I don't know, does it expire? Like how does the bar exam work?
No, yeah, I would have to do probably, I'm in a different state now, so it might change, but no, I got my retirement plan working right now.
And
so
that's when it's what dispatcher actually retires, so
I know.
maybe there's a law firm coming in the future.
You know what's funny is the person that had my position before, that's actually what he did. Is his friend is a partner in a law firm, and actually he went to go work for him in a law firm. So that's funny you say that, but yeah, I'm good for right now. You never know. Never say never.
Oh man, Wendy, thank you so much. I truly appreciate all the years and all the advice, and I'm sure lots of folks are going to learn lots from this episode. So thank you again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and it's very easy to come and chat with you. So thank you.
Awesome. I'll be right back with you. All right, everybody, another amazing episode here on Let's Talk Dispatch. Really and truly, I feel like everyone that I've talked to who kind of get into work as a 911 dispatcher didn't anticipate it, didn't expect it. And honestly, you can do anything at any time, at any point in your life. So if you're pivoting and entering dispatch, or if you're ready to pivot out of dispatch, you can always try something new and do something different. And one thing for sure, in my opinion, and I'm sure Wendy would agree, is that once you're a dispatcher, you are prepared to deal with anything in life and professional roles. It just creates an environment where you're ready to respond and react and pivot. So if you're out there listening and you're pivoting into dispatch or considering pivoting out of it, do what makes you happy, and do whatever is going to be best for you in the long run, because the world needs more dispatchers, but we need more happy dispatchers. So definitely consider all those things, whether you're coming in or heading out. Until next time, everybody, stay raspy. Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Dispatch podcast. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you're interested in becoming a guest on the show, or maybe even submitting your own story, you can do all that and more at theraspydispatcher.com. Until next time, stay raspy.